All right, let's get right into this deep dive, into the core of Business Central. We're going to be talking about tables today.
Okay.
Those fundamental data building blocks, that make the system work.
Yeah.
You sent over some really interesting sources, and I'm really eager to unpack them with you.
Great.
One in particular caught my eye. It's a YouTube video from Goms Tech Talks.
Okay.
And it really promises to demystify those Business Central tables.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. I mean, most Business Central users interact with tables every day, but I think understanding the structure and their function can really unlock a new level of insight and control for users.
Absolutely. So let's dive into this video. It kicks off by asking this fundamental question: what is a table? And it uses the spreadsheet analogy, which I think is helpful. But I'm already curious to go beyond the basics.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to think of tables as just rows and columns, but the video smartly points out that each column, or field, as they're called technically, defines the type of data that can be stored in each row. And this is where things get really interesting, because Business Central is quite specific about what goes where.
Right. The video really emphasizes how crucial data types are. And it uses the example of age. I mean, you wouldn't say you're 5.5 years old, right?
Right.
Age has to be a whole number, an integer.
Yeah.
But other things, like, say, weight, could be a decimal.
Yeah.
And I guess Business Central needs that level of specificity so we don't end up with someone who's, half a year old.
Precisely. Getting the data type right ensures data integrity. So you're avoiding nonsensical information from the start, but it also has implications for how efficiently Business Central can store and process information. And the source material even hints at how data types play a role in building more complex business logic within your system.
Okay, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. And speaking of details, the source material mentions some data types that kind of piqued my curiosity. Big integer and blob. Any idea what those are all about?
Well, a big integer allows you to store really, really large whole numbers. So think, astronomical calculations or massive inventory counts. A blob, on the other hand, is like a container for any kind of data. Images, documents, you name it. It's Business Central's way of handling information that doesn't fit neatly into those standard data types.
So blob is like that miscellaneous drawer we all have.
Yeah.
Where we shove anything that doesn't have a designated spot. Makes sense. But let's shift gears a bit. The video also touches on these table snippets, and they sound like a real time saver.
Oh yeah, some of them like pre-built templates for common table structures. So instead of writing code from scratch every time you need a new table, snippets provide a framework that you can easily customize. It's all about efficiency and consistency, especially for developers.
And this aligns perfectly with what you mentioned earlier about data integrity.
Right, exactly.
Using snippets helps ensure that you're not introducing errors by, forgetting essential elements in your table structure. It's like having pre-written code modules that are already tested and ready to go.
Exactly. And this leads us to another important concept. Table properties. These are like the settings that define how a table behaves and how it interacts with the rest of the system.
I noticed the video highlighted data classification as a key property. That sounds pretty important, especially for businesses concerned about security and privacy.
It is. Data classification allows you to tag sensitive information within a table. So this helps control access, ensures compliance with data privacy regulations, and just adds another layer of protection to your critical business data. It's becoming increasingly important in today's world.
It makes me think about how these seemingly technical details within a table can have real-world consequences for how businesses operate and handle sensitive information. It's a lot more than just rows and columns.
Absolutely. And speaking of how tables are structured, the video delves into the concept of keys, which are essential for efficiently finding and retrieving data.
Right. It talked about primary keys and secondary keys. I understand that they help speed up searches, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on how they actually work.
Imagine you're looking for a specific book in a library. You could search through every shelf until you find it, but that would take forever, right?
Right.
That's where the library's card catalog comes in. Each book has a unique identifier, a call number that helps you locate it quickly, and keys in Business Central work in a similar way.
Okay, so the primary key is like the unique call number for each row in a table.
Exactly.
And it helps Business Central pinpoint that exact row without having to scan the entire table.
Exactly. Now, imagine you also want to find all the books by a particular author. You could search by the author's name in the card catalog. That's essentially what secondary keys allow you to do. You can search for records based on different criteria, like a customer's name or an item's description.
So having the right keys is like having a super organized library where you can find any book in seconds. That makes a lot of sense.
And the source makes an interesting point about the trade-offs involved. More keys mean faster searching, but they also slow down data entry because every time you add a new record, the system has to update all those indexes.
So it's all about finding the right balance between like efficient retrieval and data entry speed. Too many keys and things could start to feel sluggish. It's fascinating how these like seemingly minor details have such a big impact on performance.
It is. And this brings us to one of the most powerful concepts related to tables, which are triggers. The video shows how you can set up these simple message triggers, and I think that's a great way to introduce the idea.
Right. It was like watching the database talk back. You perform an action, and a message pops up to confirm or to provide feedback. But the video also hinted at the fact that triggers can do so much more than just display messages.
Yeah.
What else can they do?
Well, triggers can automate a wide range of tasks within Business Central. Imagine a trigger that automatically updates inventory levels when a sales order is created, or a trigger that enforces data validation rules to ensure data accuracy. They can even interact with other systems, like sending an email notification when a specific event occurs. It's like having a team of tiny robots working behind the scenes to keep everything running smoothly.
Okay, now that's really interesting. It's like those domino displays where one tiny push sets off a whole chain reaction. But in this case, it's all about making Business Central work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. And the possibilities with triggers are truly endless, which makes them one of the most powerful tools for customizing and extending Business Central.
Triggers sound incredibly powerful, but I'm guessing there's a balance to strike. You don't want to go overboard with automation and create a system that's overly complex.
Right. Yeah, that's a key insight. While triggers offer incredible flexibility, too many triggers can make your system difficult to maintain and debug. It's like adding too many bells and whistles. Things can start to feel clunky and unpredictable. Good development practices emphasize using triggers strategically for those essential tasks and avoiding unnecessary complexity.
It makes sense. You want that efficiency, but not at the cost of maintainability. It's like finding that sweet spot between automation and simplicity. But before we get too deep into trigger best practices, I'm curious to learn more about the different types of tables in Business Central. The video mentioned table types, but it didn't really elaborate.
Right. Well, there are actually several types, each serving a different purpose. The most common are physical tables, which directly store data within the database. These are like the foundation of your system, the core repositories of information.
Okay, I'm picturing those sturdy workbenches holding all the raw materials. But the video also mentioned virtual tables, and those sound a bit more abstract.
They are. Virtual tables don't store data directly. Instead, they pull information from other sources, either within Business Central or even from external systems. They're like dynamic views that present data in a specific way without actually creating a separate physical table.
So if physical tables are the workbenches, virtual tables are more like those high-tech machines that process and analyze data from various sources.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And the choice of which type of table to use really depends on the specific task at hand and how you need to access and manipulate the data.
It's like having different tools for different jobs. And speaking of tools, the video goes deeper into keys and how they create these things called indexes to speed up searches. It mentioned something called clustering, which sounded pretty technical. Can you break that down for me?
Of course. Think about arranging books on a bookshelf alphabetically. It makes finding a specific book much faster. Clustering in Business Central works similarly. It determines the physical order in which records are stored within a table. This directly impacts how quickly the system can locate specific records.
So if a table is clustered by customer name, finding all orders for a specific customer would be much faster than if the records were like in a random order. That makes sense.
Exactly. Now the video explains that there are two main types of indexing: clustered and non-clustered. A clustered index defines the physical order of the data, like our alphabetized bookshelf. But you can only have one clustered index per table. Non-clustered indexes, on the other hand, create separate structures that point to the actual data. Think of it like creating a separate card catalog that references the books on the shelf. You can have multiple non-clustered indexes, each providing a different way to search the data.
Okay, I'm starting to see the difference. It's like having two different ways to organize your library. You can either arrange the books on the shelf in a specific order, or you can create a separate card catalog that tells you where to find each book based on different criteria, like author, genre, or publication date.
A perfect analogy. And just like in a library, choosing the right indexing strategy in Business Central depends on how you need to access the data. For frequently searched fields, a clustered index might be the best choice. But if you need to search based on multiple criteria, non-clustered indexes provide that flexibility.
It's like having different strategies for finding information. Sometimes you need to browse the shelves, and other times you need to go straight to the card catalog. And it sounds like having a good understanding of indexing is crucial for optimizing the performance of a Business Central system.
Absolutely. Choosing the right keys and indexing strategies can make a huge difference in how quickly the system can retrieve and process information, especially for complex queries involving large data sets. It's a key area where developers can really fine-tune a system for maximum efficiency.
So it's not just about having the data, it's about being able to access it quickly and efficiently when you need it. It's like having a powerful engine in a car. It's great to have the horsepower, but you also need a well-tuned transmission to get that power to the wheels.
Exactly. Now, let's shift gears back to triggers, which are one of the most exciting aspects of working with tables. As the video highlights, even those simple message triggers showcase the potential for automation.
Right. I love how it showed how a simple action, like inserting a new record, could trigger a pop-up message. It's like having the database talk back to you.
What's fascinating is that this is just scratching the surface. Triggers can do so much more than just display messages. They can automate tasks, enforce data validation rules, perform calculations, update related records, and even interact with external systems. It's like having a team of tiny robots working tirelessly behind the scenes to maintain data integrity and streamline processes.
Okay, I'm starting to see how powerful triggers can be. It's like having a whole hidden layer of automation within the database. Can you give me some real-world examples of how businesses might use triggers in Business Central?
Absolutely. Imagine a scenario where a sales order is created. A trigger could automatically update inventory levels, generate a shipping request, and even send a confirmation email to the customer, all without any manual intervention. Or consider a trigger that enforces data validation rules, like ensuring that a customer's credit limit isn't exceeded when a new order is placed.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like having a system that's constantly checking itself and making sure everything is running smoothly. It's almost like having a built-in quality control team.
Exactly. Triggers can dramatically improve data accuracy, reduce manual errors, and streamline business processes. They're a key tool for any business looking to optimize their operations and make the most of Business Central.
So it sounds like triggers are essential for anyone who really wants to unlock that full potential of Business Central.
Yeah.
It's like you're not just using the system, you're actually shaping how it works.
Exactly. And as we've been exploring, tables are at the heart of it all. They're the foundation on which everything else is built. Understanding tables, their structures, their properties, and how they relate to each other is like having the blueprint to the entire system.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground data types, keys, indexes, triggers. But I'm still wondering, how does all this theoretical knowledge, how does it translate to what I'm actually doing in Business Central?
Yeah.
Can you give me a concrete example of how all these pieces kind of fit together in a real world business process?
Absolutely. Let's take a process almost every business deals with. Sales orders. When you create a sales order in Business Central, multiple tables are involved behind the scenes.
Okay, walk me through it. What kind of tables are we talking about?
You definitely have a customer table to store information about who's placing the order.
Okay.
Then you'd need an item table to track the products being sold,
Right.
a sales order table to hold the overall order details, and a sales line table to list each individual item on the order.
So each table is like a separate container for a specific piece of the puzzle.
Right.
And together they paint the complete picture of that sales order.
Precisely. And those keys we talked about earlier, they're what connect those separate pieces. The sales order table, for example, might have a field called Customer Know that links directly to the customer table. That way, Business Central instantly knows which customer that order belongs to. No more, searching through mountains of data.
Because like each table has those little hooks, the keys,
Yeah.
that link them together in a very specific way.
Exactly. And then those triggers we discussed come into play to automate actions across these interconnected tables.
Yeah.
Imagine a trigger that as soon as the sales order is created, automatically updates inventory levels in the item table.
Right.
That's streamlined efficiency right there.
So it's not just about storing data, it's about setting up these dynamic relationships between tables, using keys and triggers to make the whole system responsive and almost think for itself.
Yeah.
This is really eye-opening.
It is. And the possibilities are truly vast. Triggers can calculate discounts, manage approval workflows, send notifications, even integrate with external systems like shipping providers, all based on events happening within those core tables.
I'm starting to see that tables aren't just about passively storing data. They're the active drivers of so many processes within Business Central.
Yeah. Could have said it better myself. And the beauty is, once you understand these underlying principles, you can start to customize and extend Business Central in powerful ways.
Yep.
You're not just a user anymore. You're shaping the system to work exactly how your business needs it to.
Okay, I'd have to admit I'm feeling a lot more confident about navigating this world of tables now.
Good.
What started as a pretty basic concept has unfolded into this incredibly intricate system with so many layers of functionality.
It is an intricate system, but as with anything complex, breaking it down into its core components makes it much more manageable. And in the case of Business Central, those core components are, without a doubt, tables.
Well, I think we've done a fantastic job of unpacking those components today. From data types and keys to triggers and table relationships, we've really taken a comprehensive deep dive.
We have, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to continue exploring. There's so much more to discover, especially as you start applying this knowledge to your own unique Business Central implementation.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today?
It's this. Tables are the dynamic heart of Business Central. They're not just static containers, they're the building blocks of automation, efficiency, and powerful customization. Understanding tables truly unlocks the full potential of the system.
Beautifully put. And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, when it comes to Business Central, it all starts with tables.